Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Today I'm finally tackling something that has been on my to-do list for a little over a year and a half now, which, yes, is the same amount of time that you know what has been going on in the world because something inappropriate humor as a coping mechanism. So it's been on my list for a while to make myself a plague doctor costume, and I finally got around to it using all upcycled material that I already had on hand. But that's enough talking, let's just get into it. Here is the design for the costume that I'll be working from. It's a more feminine take on the plague doctor that obviously does not include full PPE. For the mask, I used my old faux leather jacket, manila folders, a mask template from sksprops.com, and a craft mask from a previously abandoned project. The mask template was far too small the first time I printed it out, not realizing that the printer was set to shrink it to the page.
All around me are familiar faces.
When I printed it out at the correct scale, the template didn't fit a standard sheet of paper, but it was still workable. I traced the beak portion of the template onto the manila folders, which would be used to create a sort of bone structure for the mask. My old leather jacket would become the outer layer, but first I had to separate the pieces for easier access. I sewed the beak portion of the leather together with my machine, then fit it over the manila folder to make sure everything lined up. I had to make some adjustments to the eyes, and then I proceeded to just fuss with it for a very long time, wondering how the heck I would make all of this work. But eventually I had to stop dragging my feet and just start gluing the darn thing. After making more adjustments to the eye holes, I realized the leather just wasn't going to cover all of the tan manila folder pieces, so I did have to paint it. Speaking of eye holes, to create the goggles, I wrapped my manila folder pieces in the faux leather, sandwiching a piece of clear projector sheet in between the layers. Do schools even use overhead projectors anymore? To make them sit slightly up off the mask, I mutilated a toilet paper tube into two of these little triangle shapes and then wrapped them in the leather just like the circles. After I glued those two pieces together, I began securing the outer layer of the mask in place. Before I glued down the brow piece, I folded under the raw edges and sewed a straight stitch so that it would look like it was sewn on. Once all the pieces were attached, it was time for some final touches. I made hot glue bumps all the way around the goggle rims to simulate rivets. Coloring them with a metallic Sharpie left a bit of a mess, so I cleaned up the edges with black paint and dry brushed the rivets to age them. To make a strap, I took 2 foot-long strips of faux leather and sewed them together folded in half. Once they were right side out, I connected them with a short piece of elastic. I secured this to the mask with embroidery thread and black satin buttons. For the cape, I used part of this skirt pattern as a template, extending the length at the top and the bottom. This black fabric was a curtain I bought a while ago at the thrift store. I used one of my hoodies as a guideline for the hood, but made it much bigger. When I had these pieces cut out, I traced them onto my lining fabric, which I believe used to be a tablecloth. This burgundy fabric is so gorgeous, but it was such a headache to work with. Then I sewed the cape front pieces to the back for each fabric and connected the two halves of the hood. I think I forgot to film this step, actually. Anyway, to keep the lining from moving around, I sewed the seam allowances together. My original plan to finish the edges was to fold in the rough edges toward each other, which would make the cape reversible, but the red lining fabric was so unhappy no matter what tension setting I used, and caused the edges to pucker and curl. So after several hours of picking apart the seams, I decided to fold the black fabric over the red and make a narrow hem all the way around. Also, shout out to my husband for running out to Walmart for me first thing in the morning when I ran out of black thread at this point in the project. Before I could attach the hood, I gathered the bottom of the hood slightly to fit the neckline. I folded the rough edges of the cape neckline in toward each other and sandwiched the hood between them. Lastly, I added some ribbon on either side for a tie closure. So the gloves did not work out. I didn't take into account how much fabric would be needed to fit all the way around my hand and wrist, and not just across a 2D representation. I cut my fabric way too small and there wasn't enough fabric to try a second time. So I had to abandon that dream and swap in some costume gloves I already had. For the staff, Charles found me this really nice branch in the woods to use. First, it needed to be shortened. I removed the remaining bark with a pocket knife. I thought about painting the staff black, but I decided to leave it as is until I have time to properly stain it and seal it. And as a last-minute addition, I made a strip of faux leather to wrap around the top of the staff and adorned it with this glass dragon tear charm I got from a Ren fair back in 7th grade. Okay, it got very warm out there. Why is it so warm? It's October. So for big projects like this, I do like to do a little reflection wrap up. Overall, I am quite pleased with how this turned out. It's pretty darn close to what I envisioned in my head. So starting with the mask, I think what caused me to run into some fit issues was that I combined the template with my own mask. It does sit on my face better than I think just using the manila folder would have. It's shaped to actually fit a face, but then that's where I had some difficulty making the eye holes, combining it with the template because it's just a little bit different. But it does have the little cavity in the beak where I could shove some medicinal herbs and, you know, be a little more legit with this. There's a lot of spots where I can see glue if I'm looking close enough, and that's a personal pet peeve of mine. I really hate when I can see glue on projects. I'm still really proud of this. I think it's so cool. I want to hang it on the wall somewhere, maybe. Not in my room. This is not what I want to see in the middle of the night when I wake up. All right, the cape. I did run into a lot of issues with just not having the right amount of fabric. When I initially bought this fabric back in the spring at the thrift store, for some reason I was like,
yeah, 1 sheet of each of these is totally enough.
But I really should have bought at least 2 of each. Not to mention I left an incomplete set at the thrift store for whatever sorry soul came along next. I always feel a little bit bad about that when there's like 2 curtains and I just want 1 for the fabric, but So finagling enough fabric out of this to make the cape was tricky, but it's adequate. It worked. The biggest issue though was this beautiful burgundy fabric was horrible to work with. Absolutely horrible. If there is one takeaway lesson I've learned from this project, it would be, do not be fooled by, ooh, pretty, if indeed the fabric is shitty. Yeah, this slippery devil here was a lot of trouble. The red fabric looks beautiful, but it's such a pain in the butt. But definitely yesterday when I realized that the gloves just weren't gonna happen, I felt any drop of motivation I still had for this just leave. I'ma head out. I'm done. I'm very sweaty and I'm done. Next video will definitely not be a big project because I am tired, but there will be more spooky stuff coming, so. All right, I'm starving. I need to go. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you next time. Bye. Vocal fry. So the mask. Oh, there goes my stomach growling. Stomach, shut up. No one asked you. Ouch. Oh, your feet are in the picture. Watch your feetsies.